All right, good evening, everybody. We're going to get started. My name is Sean Kane Holland. I'm the Access, Nature, and Disability Advocate with Pinelands Preservation Alliance. Thank you all for joining us for this next installment of the Access Nature Forum, where through discussion, we hope to make the outdoors more inclusive and accessible to those with various disabilities. Tonight, glad to welcome Tom Hennigan from JORBA. We're just going to discuss sustainable and accessible trails, specifically bike trails, where JORBA has created a accessible bike trail, mountain bike trail up in North Jersey. JORBA was founded in 1999 as a nonprofit organization, which is dedicated to serving specifically off-road, bicycles, bicycle trails, and with a focus to build and maintain sustainable multi-use trails. So I just want to thank you all for joining us for this conversation. I'm going to turn it over now to Tom to begin his presentation.
Hi, everyone. I think I'll start with sharing my screen. My presentation here, making sure that everyone can see it. So, unfortunately, I didn't realize there was any sound in there because when you're actually working on these slides, there's no sound playing. So when I dropped in that video, I didn't realize that. So I'm here to talk about adaptive mountain biking and adaptive mountain biking with regards to trails. But basically what it is it's a kind of a way to provide access to trails in the backcountry. It's something different. Yes. So I'll recap a little bit about what JORBA does. I'm the executive director, and in a nutshell, JORBA advocates for, builds and maintains sustainable trails that we can ride on. And the reason that we're here is we built New Jersey's first adaptive mountain bike trail. So kind of a quick little synopsis of what that is. It's kind of like this is the story of inclusion. We had a joint project with the Trail Conference that presented an opportunity to do some work on. In a nutshell, it was a story of inclusion because the Trail Conference and the hikers decided to include mountain bikers in their plans to rehabilitate those trails. And that gave us the ability to include adaptive riders in building these trails and make it more accessible for everyone else. So we'll go on and tell you how we've done it and what you can do to your trails and some of the differences between what are adaptive mountain bikes and some of the differences between regular trails and adaptive mountain bike trails. So from the start, I'm not sure every one of you are familiar with what is an adaptive mountain bike. So adaptive mountain bikes basically allow riders access to the backcountry. They allow different peoples to use these specially designed devices, accessibility devices, to get onto natural surface trails in the woods. We all know about the benefits of being outdoors, and these are the same benefits that apply to adaptive mountain biking, or the same benefits that apply to each and every one of us. Why would someone want to do adaptive mountain biking and get into the outdoors? Is the same reason that I want to get into the outdoors, or that you want to hike and get out on the trails and enjoy nature, provide some physical fitness, boost some self-confidence, find some peace of mind, challenge yourself. All the reasons are the same. Give you an idea about adaptive mountain bike accessibility devices in particular. These devices come in a wide variety of different types and styles because they all depend on the specific needs of the rider involved and their abilities to do that. So I'm just going to go through this kind of a little bit on the quick side to sort of give you an idea of what an adaptive mountain bike looks like. And these are different models that I pulled off the internet. Some are hand cycles. Most are three-wheel devices like that. Some are electric, some are manual. And it's not just for adaptive mountain biking, but these devices, these accessibility devices can also be used for stuff like hunting and access to the outdoors for fishing in different areas as well. So it's all a little bit different. So how is an adaptive mountain bike trail different from another trail that you've got on there? First off, I wanted to talk about the surface. These things were designed to go on the native surface trails as opposed to asphalt, because the world doesn't need any more asphalt trails. And they're easy to access the existing trails that you've got in your network, your trail network, what you see in the woods. Most adaptive mountain bikes are three-wheeled. Three-wheeled vehicles can tend to tip over. So that's one of the features that you have to design for. And the other thing with adaptive mountain bikes is the sight lines of the riders are a lot lower to the ground. So that comes into a lot of maintenance issues, comes into clearing the trail of vegetation. So you can provide sight lines to see down the trail to make it safe to ride on and stuff like that. That also helps with signage. Signage has to be, it doesn't help if the sign or the blaze is up at your normal eye level if somebody can't read what's stapled to the tree or nailed to the tree that's at 5 foot high. So you should consider something along lower, around 3 foot high. But basically, they're the same thing for an adaptive trail. Some of the features is the width, because you have two front tires in the back as opposed to a single track. The general access tends to be from around 40 inches to 6 feet. And there's a wide range in different sizes that come around when they say features of an adaptive trail, because adaptive riders, like mountain bike riders and like skiers and everything, have different levels of ability. So the more advanced riders can go on the narrower, tougher trails, and the wider, more accommodating trails can include a wider group of different people. You need a smooth and stable surface in which to ride on. Off-camber obstacles will go in that in a difference, because as a three-wheel vehicle, if you hit an off-camber object, like a rock that's raised from the trailhead, that's in the trailhead, if you happen to hit that with one of your front tires, perhaps it'll tip you over the side. And depending on the side of the trail, if there's an edge right there, it could provide a fall hazard, which is especially dangerous for an adaptive rider that's probably most likely locked into his bike as opposed to sitting on top of it. Turns that you have to make for an adaptive rider need to have at least a 20 to 25 foot turn radius. As you can imagine, you can see between Dale's 2 feet up here in the front on that. Even if he had to crank the wheels left to right, he can't turn quite as quickly as everyone else can. The other thing to be concerned with is the maximum trail grade in which people have. Maximum trail grade should probably be no greater than 20%. That's so that people can be able to get up them and get down them. It's not such of a big deal because that's pretty much the same kind of trail grade you want to go for any kind of sustainable trail. The other consideration that you want to look on is stream and river crossings. If you have to do a bridge, you want to make sure that it's got a particular width that's strong enough to accommodate them. So you have width that starts at probably 40 to 72 inches, 40 inches in the pinch. The tread has to be smooth and dirt. Turns a little bit wider. The grade a little bit gentle. Pretty much the same within the standard of all other grades. And then the bridges have to make sure you accommodate them. These features aren't all that much different than a beginner trail itself. So it's not so much different than a natural surface beginner trail out in the woods. One other thing that's very important that I mentioned earlier was the clear signage. The wayfinding and markers should be about 3 feet high to get to eye level for the riders. In addition, depending on the trail and your network, you might want to include some extra information on the trail signage, generally telling them about how long the trail is, what they can expect on the trail, access, if they'll need a support rider or something else on that. But without going into the whole issue of signages, which is a story in itself, I'll just go into some of the specifics when it comes to the trails that you have to look at. So we talked about width before. The 40-inch width is for the chokes and pinches. Up here, when we've been building multi-use trails for many years. The majority of our trails that we deal with are for hikers and bikers, and we also deal trails for equestrians as well. A lot of times when we design a trail, when we've designed trails in the past, we've purposely built in pinches less than 40-inch in design in width, in particular to weed out ATVs and four-wheel quads and stuff like that. It's a bit different for here. You have a different access. You need to provide access for these people. So making it too wide, you have the potential of bringing in some other trail users that you may not want to accommodate as far as that goes. Probably one of the most important things, or the easiest thing to look at, is the adaptive trail camber. So this is, as we talked about, pitching over the rider on their side. When we were talking about our trail in particular that we built, the initial route that we had choked down pretty tight. And the main concern that I had about that was off to the side, there was a drop where there was no safe fall zone if someone got hurt. So we really necessitated to take that into consideration and look for a different route that would not provide a potentially dangerous situation. So trail camber next to width is probably the next certain thing. And then as we look at trails, what's often kind of left out is the turn size. Now, when we build trails for hikers and bikers, we're generally not building too much berms. But if you do need to don't have enough room to do this, you can put a berm in there that will accommodate adaptive riders, and you can make a tighter radius. But then again, tighter radius and bigger berms are a trail that's for a more experienced adaptive rider than someone else. So we're looking at a radius that's generally starts at around 20 to 25 feet. And so you're looking at potentially like 50 feet in plain view of a round, which can take up quite a lot of space. That's the main thing. So when it comes to adaptive trails, I wanted to make sure that most people know that all the adaptive trails that you're building are sustainable. They follow a lot of the sustainable trail guidelines that we use, and just following sustainable guideline trails is a good start in providing access to a wider variety group of people. Just some of the features of sustainability and how they relate to features for accessibility. So basically, following principles like universal trail design, where you're trying to provide an experience for as many people as possible. When you look at this, the sustainable trail features lend themselves to accessibility as well. Probably the most important thing about a sustainable trail is that it starts as a contour trail. It follows the contour, it traverses along the side slope. And because it does so, it's easier to travel. So it makes access easier for people using alternative devices. We talked about grades before. If the grades are sustainable, they're easier for people to get up and easier for the people to travel on. If the tread is resistant to erosion, then you have a smoother surface and it's stable. It's less likely to shift, and it provides a safer and an easier platform for people to go on. Outsloped tread can be a little bit tricky because of the tipping availability of some of these vehicles, but Keeping the outslope tread features in it keeps the trail dry, provides the drainage, and keeps the surface easier to people to work about. Frequent linear grade reversals are easier to navigate than some of the other features that you'll find on trails. Grade reversals, for people that don't know it, they minimize erosion by not allowing the water to gain velocity as it's going down the trail. It's a dip in the trail that allows a person, if he was on an adaptive bike, to roll in and roll out without any extra effort, but it's enough of a dip to channel the water off the trail, keeping the trails drier and smoother. Because they're gradual, they can easily accommodate accessibility on that. Sustainable trails are lower overall maintenance costs, maintenance needs. You're not building water bars. Water bars would be difficult for someone on an adaptive bike to handle. They don't need the maintenance that something like a water bar needs to do. So overall, sustainability is not always just about erosion and drainage. It's about sustainability, sometimes economically as well in the future. And without those maintenance needs, you can adapt some of these features to provide a positive user experience to a wider range of people. Sometimes this is as simple as adopting these standards will allow you to support people like the elderly that may find it difficult to access some of the tougher trails in a network. They could provide access for families that's perhaps walking with a walker, a stroller, and children and toddlers. So sustainable trail features are a low-hanging fruit entrance to open up the door to a lot of accessibility and widen the access for a lot of different people. So when it comes down to that, I'd like to go a little bit more into universal design is basically trying to design the product to use for as many people as possible. Because we're trying to accommodate as many people as possible, and we're trying to make the product last for now and in the future sustainably wise, it all sort of works together very well to make it easier. So I wanted to just sort of cover some of the trail considerations that we went through. And I say we, I'm talking about Peter's on the call right now, the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference, and us, when we worked on a mutual process that sort of came in here. So inclusive trail design is basically, it's considering what else you can do and how many different people you can handle safely and enjoyment as many people as possible. So we had two stakeholders in here, and the first stakeholder happens to be the New Jersey Trail Conference on this project and JORBA. And there's a network of trails adjacent in Long Pond Ironworks, adjacent to Jungle Habitat up there, where Jungle Habitat's predominantly mountain biking area. And Northern Green State Forest is a predominantly hiking only area. So by the hikers reaching out to include the mountain bikers in looking at this trail, it's expanded the opportunity for both of us to work together and make this whole trail system more sustainable and accommodate a wider group of people, a wider number of hikers, as well as a wider number of bikers involved. Because they accommodated us, that allowed us later on to accommodate some of the other trail users in the group for the adaptive mountain bikes. So some of the considerations that you guys might want to come to when you start thinking about putting in these things is, would making trails more accessible be detrimental to the environment? Most of the places that we work on, that we volunteer in, I'm sure this goes for the trail conference as well, are public lands. Many of them are on the state properties, which is run by the Department of Environmental Protection. And it's in their name. They're there to protect the environment. We're not here to mess that up at all. So that's the first hurdle you should probably be looking at when it comes down. Would making it more accessible make it less enjoyable to other people? That can be an issue that you want to look at when it comes to your type of users in your land area or your land management. Um, some of that could lead to user conflict. If Dale was coming around a trail on that device and perhaps there were equestrians on a blind corner, could it cause a conflict between those two different user groups? Something else. How much more accessible do you want to make the trail? When I mentioned earlier, the world doesn't need more asphalt. That's true. But you know what? There's a reason why we use asphalt in many different places. This is adaptive mountain bikes are accessibility devices for natural surface trails, and they're meant for back in the woods. Mountain bikers are different devices, and we realize that not all trails are suitable for mountain bikers. There are plenty of trails that should be hiking only when it comes down to it. There's plenty of trails that I think should be mountain bike only based on it. You have to balance the use requirements that you're doing. I think it means probably that you've got to have these considerations right from the planning get-go. Like, how hard you want to make it, how accessible, how easy. And then coming up next is probably the crux for most of you land managers and most of the people over there, is how much energy and money would it take to build this, to make it accessible, and to accommodate more people? And then not only how much money, but does your organization have the capacity to manage those kind of projects, and the financial resources to see it through into the future on that? So assuming that all those things could be accommodated, I think you should go ahead and try to make them as accessible as possible. So on a practical basis, I'll show you sort of what we had to that sort of led to this little instruction. Our project included taking over a legacy hiking trail and adapting it for multi-use. The trail was originally called the Hewitt-Butler Trail, and at one particular section of the Hewitt-Butler Trail was a fall line section. It was pretty steep. While it was good for the occasional hikers by changing the use to multi-use and hopefully increasing the number of people we had on it, we knew that section would not be able to last until the future. So when it comes to the trail building, sustainable trail building answer book or book of solutions or go-to solutions, you have a couple different ways that you sort of attack these steep, unsustainable sections. For hikers, a lot of times it can be building steps that they can walk up and down. Steps don't work so good for bikes, so it's kind of tough going up more so than going down. The answer for bikes, if we had to do it, was to build more turns. Nice, big, swoopy bank turns, switchbacks, they call them, which make for great fun riding going down, makes for easier climbing coming up. For an experience for a hiker, not so much so. I can tell you if I'm into a long hike and I come to a switchback and I can see a trail 10 feet above me, and I've seen it plenty of times before, your tendency is to cut the trail. And when you cut the trail, you're walking straight up the fall line and you're creating a path for water and more erosion. And you've defeated the whole purpose of creating a sustainable trail. So that was two different cruxes that we were trying to sort of work when it comes down, that we were trying to sort of figure out like what we can do. So since we needed that, what we did is we looked at the trail and we tried to design something that we could do and take out as many turns as possible to accommodate the hikers, still make it interesting for mountain bikers. When we started looking at those plans and designs, you could see some of the etches backs of my old sketches of me walking in and looking at different stuff. We came out straighter and straighter. It soon became apparent to us that, with just a few more little tweaks, we could actually accommodate adaptive mountain bikes in this pretty easily. And then from then on, it was pretty straightforward to go for it. So simply by thinking about other users' needs and stretching the needs out, we were able to accommodate many more people than we would have had we originally done it, had we originally worked on the existing unsustainable section of the Legacy Trail. It allowed us to accommodate a much broader section of users. I think that kind of framework can be done for pretty much anyone, to include a wide spectrum of different users, a wide variety of different users. If you start thinking along the lines of just what are the little tweaks it takes that would help to make things easier for different people. So the first thing you should probably look at if you're looking at a trail or a trail network is to ensure sustainability of your trails. All trails, whether it's pedestrians for hikings only, they should provide the opportunity to recreate on that trail for now and in the future, and it should be able to do it in a cost-effective manner on that. So ensure the sustainability of trails. I shouldn't have to tell people this, but unsustainable trails, trails that have mud holes and drainage issues on them, are not sustainable. Fall line trails that have erosion and eroding are not sustainable. And in today's world of climate change and everything, those trails should already be on your list, on your punch list to work on. And if they're on your punch list to work on, they should be on your punch list to see what you can do to make them more inclusive. So every time that you have an opportunity that you want to attack a trail on the problem, you should be thinking about how can I work to make this a little bit easier or a little bit more inclusive for more people, and how I can accommodate it. And when we talked about it, probably the easiest thing you can do is to make it easier. Many of our trails, many of the existing trails that we have in our network throughout New Jersey, throughout the country, and throughout the stuff, are legacy trails that were originally developed for different purposes. Up here in North Jersey, we're full of these old woods roads that when the park takes over, they slap on a blaze and they call them a woods trail. And those wood roads were meant for miners to access a mine. They were meant for farmers to access their fields. They were meant for something other than hiking and other than biking. Many times they are not sustainable at all, and they're actually increasing to the silt load that goes into the streams and the rivers and the stuff like that. So on those kind of things, you should be looking at reducing the environmental damage of unsustainable trails and trying to make it as inclusive as possible. The easiest way that you can do it is making it simple. And that can be something as making it smoother surface, a little bit wider, not so short, not so steep that people of different ages would have difficulty traversing it. And it's just part of the whole process of including in there, of making it as easy as possible or as simple as possible as you can. When you're looking at these different trails, when it comes down to it, it's a good idea to sort of look at the easier, simpler trails should be closer to the trailhead, and the more difficult, harder trails should be deeper into the trail network. That helps separate the trail user groups, but it also accommodates the widest number of users by allowing the more advanced users to get access into the deeper, more challenging environment that they're looking for in the environment, while providing access for a wider group of people that would be using, the easier access to the network on that. And probably when it comes very much down to this, you can get a turnkey solution by hiring a professional trail builder. There are professional trail building organizations out there that are organizations that just do professional trail building. Trailbuilders.org is the association for it. These people can provide everything you need, from accessing your entire network for accessibility, accessing it for the types of trail use that you people want, that land managers want, that you decide you want to accommodate. You can provide a turnkey solution, you can provide part of the solution, or you can do it with volunteers. It all depends on how much or how little you guys want to get involved in doing these things. So I recommend giving them a call and talking to them about their trail association. And I want to open it up now and see if you guys had any questions.
I actually have one, if you don't mind.
Hey, Peter.
Hello. So I know this area's got a lot of illegal quad and ATV use, and you did acknowledge that the additional width that comes into designing these kinds of trails might, remove some of the traditional pinches or obstacles to ATVs poaching these trails. So is that a concern here? And are there extra steps to be taken to keep ATVs from riding here and introducing conflict with bikers, and especially adaptive bikers?
So there is a tremendous conflict. Our trail that we worked on, Stags in particular, is in jungle habitat, and jungle habitat is very heavily ATV use, and the adaptive trail that we built actually traverses on part of an existing what we had named the top quad trail, because it was literally the top quad trail. And it is, as you saw when we built it, it's a nice, smooth, flat surface, and it's really accommodating. It's really attractive to them. We can't prevent people from getting on it when we provided access along those routes. There is what we did wind up doing is we included signage that explained that this trail was made for disabled Americans, and please try not to ruin it. That experience in the year that we've had on the trail is, yes, there's dirt bike tracks on it. And yes, there's ATV tracks, but there's not all that much on there right now, as much as I was concerned. So yes, it is. If it's an area, I think that you have lots of ATV issues, that's something you're going to have to take into consideration as well. Maybe it might be putting it closer to the trailhead where an ATV rider will not want to go, like that. Sorry.
Tom, I have a question for you, but first, thank you for the presentation. And
Hi, John.
my question is, we're in the Pine Barrens, and the place that I'm specifically referring to is called the Black Run Preserve in Evesham Township. And it's mostly sand, but we do have it's basically a work road. And it's 8 feet wide. And some Jersey gravel is going to be put down to deal with some puddles. And when that Jersey gravel goes down, it could be made in such a way that it, levels things out. Is Jersey gravel something that would work for adaptive bike riders? Because if so, combination of Jersey gravel and sand, this trail is approximately 2.5 miles long. It would be very easy, but it does have a rise. I don't know if it exceeds 20%, but I just wanted to get your opinion about Jersey gravel.
So, yeah, I'm assuming it's just going to be the gravel that you compact onto a dirt road then, right?
Pretty much whatever's used in the Pine Barrens by Warden State Forest. If you go down a place called Quaker Bridge Road, any repairs that are made, it's basically Jersey gravel. They stockpile it.
Yeah, as far as adaptive mountain bikes go, per se, they are not going to have a problem. Any adaptive mountain bike is not going to have a problem with any of that kind of surface right now.
Cool.
The adaptive mountain bikes are meant specifically to cover native surface trails, so they can handle something like this. And most of these things are a bit more capable than you expected. When we talked about a smooth and stable surface, that's fine, but protrusions and rocks that stick up, probably 2 to 3 inches, are not going to be too much of a problem. When I was out riding with Dale, we had 2 riders in there, Dale Short and Aaron Essner, 2 different gentlemen with two different types of bikes and two different issues. Getting over that small stuff is not really an issue. But John, it comes back to the quality trail experience is sort of what I'm going on for. And I understand that as land managers at the Black Run Preserve, you have this existing woods road, and perhaps for fire access reasons, you want to keep it open, and you might as well call it a trail. You know, that's great. And some people like walking on trails per se, but it's not providing actually a quality trail experience for many different people. You know, walking down a woods road is not, to me, the same as hiking a smaller trail that cuts through the woods. So yes, it can accommodate them, and yes, I think you should do it. And what I would consider is then once you get that under your belt, maybe think of stacking on a loop to that trail. I know we have our Cherry Hill chapter will be helping with the poker run that you guys have coming up in October, but
no,
in
April.
And you know, I would consider, if you look at the whole network like that, is start there, and if you can, then perhaps add on to another little loop that can be added onto it. At which point, you may not need new Jersey gravel. I will say, in particular, Jay Jones is our Cherry Hill chapter, but we have a gentleman from that handles Wharton for the mountain bike trails in Wharton is Kurt Widmeyer. And Kurt has done literally extensive research into trails building in the Pinelands because of the sandy soil types that he does. And he would be the expert that I would reach out to talk to you about the techniques that he has and uses for building on that type of soil situation. And I could definitely put you in touch with him as well. Or Jay Jones, if you know Jay, will be able to as well.
Jay is a member of the Friends of the Black Run Preserve Trustees Board.
Okay.
So yes, definitely know Jay.
Yeah.
A second follow-up question, if you don't mind. Would you happen to have access to or be able to help us reach out to veterans who are disabled and would need such or enjoy such an experience?
Sadly, no. So where it comes down to it, and kind of what sort of happens to that is, as I mentioned earlier, JORBA's sphere of influence is, you know, mountain bike advocacy, sustainable trail building and design, and the Venn diagram of where that overlaps with the accessible trails and the adaptive mountain biking allows us to build the trails for those types of devices. But we don't actually have probably the relationships with the individuals or that community. Before the show, I was talking with Sean a little bit, and my first experience with adaptive mountain bikers was up in Vermont in 2016 at the Vermont Mountain Bike Festival. And I was blown away by the first time seeing these adaptive bikes, and the riders were out there doing it. That was put on the Vermont Mountain Bike Association, had Vermont Adaptive Sports Association as their benefactor. And all these trail designs, like those pictures that I showed you about the off camber and all those considerations that they did, came from Kootenai Adaptive Sports Associations. And these are associations, most of them were based on winter ski resorts, ski areas, and have grown out of their adaptive skiing sports to provide adaptive mountain biking. And I would try to find those associations to probably work with. Move America was also a good source for a lot of that stuff as well. For the veterans, I'm sorry, that's not my area of expertise. I don't really know.
Thanks for that answer. That's helpful, though.
But if it's trails, I can figure it out for you.
Okay. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.
Hey, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask a question? This is Andy Rolla.
Sure.
Okay. I think the work you do is really great. And I worry, well, the thing about sustainability thing is that you don't consider that you're using up about a half an acre per mile of trail, and you're tearing down trees, and you got to consider the woods, the experiences for a hiker, uh, a hunter, a horseback rider, a biker, is to make the trail themselves and get out there. I mean, your development. I mean, unless you're in a park that has hired you to make a bike park, you have to get a development permit. You're using over for you want 5 miles of trails. Now, I really hope that you're not using this as your template when you come to repair trails on other places. Like I am a local at Alair and Brisbane, and I know JORBA's there, and I've seen them, and I love them. I've donated, and I really, but the trails are getting wider and wider because there's more and more EVs. There's more and more motorcycles. They're heavier, they're faster, more torque, and it's killing the trails. It's not mountain biking anymore, and you want people to make the off-road bikes are for off the road. You're building roads. Sorry, I can't agree with this, and I hope the trails at Alair could survive if you leave the leaves in the winter. It makes a wearing coat because they're so compacted now. The groundwater tables are lowering. If the local people, you couldn't get a permit because the local townships, the Manasquan River is flooding up there. The flood stages are crazy because there's no groundwater percolation. Everything goes down the trails into the Manasquan River, and so you got to get a wearing coat every year and leave the leaves, especially pine needles. It's nice, but when you're there, that's what I would appreciate. And if you got a place that's going to be building trails for accessible people, I think your designs are great. But please, you're just in other mountain bike areas, you're inviting motorcycles. You're inviting Harley Davidsons. A mountain biker doesn't want to ride on a little thing like that.
Is there a question?
Thank you for your consideration. Andy, did you have a question or? Did you have a question? Because this is really for a Q&A.
Oh yeah. Well, the basic question was: is that your template for when you repair trails?
No, because it's each trail is unique. First off, we don't do anything without the landowner's permission. And everything we do, most of the work that JORBA does happens to be in state parks and forests. And when you do work in the state parks and forests, you do work to their specs and you do work to their designs and you accommodate the users that they say. And every work you do goes through the land management review process. And that land management review process looks at all of those different things. So what we build and what we work through is the result of what the land managers want. And by far, the vast bulk of what we're building is single track. That's no more than 24 inches wide. That's JORBA as a whole. But, it depends on the situation. If the land manager wants something that's going to be wide, like 6 to 7 feet wide, then that's what the land manager has. There's many different users that they're trying to accommodate and what we're filling in, and there's many different ways to provide access for that stuff. And not all of them is an adaptive trail. And as I mentioned earlier, when you consider these adaptive trails, it's like it's not suitable for everyone, and what level of access do you want to provide to it? Because there are plenty of areas where, for environmental reasons, we don't want people to go to. There's endangered plants and animals and habitat. There's different times of year that we're not allowed to work on because of the nesting features and mating seasons of plants and animals. So actually, quite frankly, the first thing that comes in first is the environmental considerations and what the land manager wants for itself.
Well, the DEP doesn't do anything for Alair or any of their state parks, and it's mostly all volunteer. They got a sign up at the parking lot on Hospital Road right there. Says the DEP says don't make any new trails, no new structures, and But
Exactly. And nobody should be making any new trails or any structures
I'm part of the
on
problem.
that unless DEP,
Pardon me?
unless the DEP tells them to. Nobody should be doing that. That's illegal.
Yeah, I know. But that's the way a lot of trails in New Jersey have been built,
Ah.
just by the users.
Yep,
Uh,
I know that.
so, well,
Well, thank you
anyway,
for your
thanks.
concern, Andrew. But did anybody else have a question? I saw that Gina Marie had her hand up.
Yes, hi. I'm sorry. I was late. I was on another meeting call with the state council. I very grateful for this program. I'm aware of the grant. I get emails. I try to stay aware as much as possible. I have a question about part of the grant is there any allocations available or a connection back to the local SIL programs because you are making these trails more accessible and adaptable to people with that are on the spectrum of disabled functions. Like I know you got like a couple of the beach chairs for people that are in the wheelchairs. I saw that from I think Mr. Sean's emails and stuff. And also I have another question, which I not know if this is the right form, but it's kind of connected with Murphy passed a law saying that every county has to have at least one park that's ADA comply. Are you going to piggyback and extend on that too? Because I understand Mr. Andrews' concerns with like widening and changing, the nature of our state, but at the same time, some of the parks that they are putting in place, like my county where I live, there's a newer park and it's not practicals for me at my function level. And I'm considered a more high function disabled level to enjoy the park with someone. So that was just a couple of yeah, that's all I'm gonna ask. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for your questions. I'll probably touch on some of the questions in a private email to you, Gina, because it's not exactly for this topic. But yeah, you're right. You did see some with PPA. We did get some grant assistance for wheelchairs with the Pinelands Preservation, or I'm sorry, with Pinelands Adventures, where we're able to take out folks with mobility concerns with wheelchairs that we were able to acquire. And some state parks are also getting grants and funding allocations to acquire their own wheelchairs for loan, we'll say rental, while individuals visit parks. So the state, I know, is looking into ways to provide those wheelchairs to the general public.
Thank you, Mr. Sean. And from what Mr. Tom was saying about the trails and leveling it out and making it wider and stuff, that's so like it allows me to be able to enjoy the outside again. So I'm very appreciative of this program and the work that goes into it. So thank you for that. I look forward to being able, especially with the season turning, to be able to do it, to get back out there. So thank you.
I will say ourselves, we had no public funding for our trails. We all raised the money through donations through private foundations, and grants were given to us to build our trails. And they were more than eager to help as far as that goes.
Thank you, Tom. Does anyone else have any questions for Tom? So we're getting close to the hour
Sure.
time. So, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just to recap, not every trail should be built to accommodate a wheelchair or an adaptive bike or a mountain bike or a hiker for that matter. There's plenty of places for that. What it is just about thinking how to accommodate as many different people as we can as possible. And, it makes an experience I think is worth sharing for everyone.
Well put there, Tom. I really agree with that statement there. But yeah, I think thank you all for joining this Access Nature Forum. one last call. If anybody has any questions, you can put them in the chat or speak up. All right. Well, I'm gonna close out the meeting for tonight. Thank you all. Look forward to seeing you all in our next April Access Nature Forum. Signing off for tonight. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.
Tom and JORBA for presenting this very insightful presentation. Look forward to making more accessible bike trails throughout the state.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.